Fred Bryant, about 4 years.
And what brought you to the church?
Probably should. One of the things was I was a real history fanatic, and I particularly like Russian history, and you really can't do much with Russian history unless you run into the Orthodox Church. So I decided to find out and go to an Orthodox service. I mentioned it to somebody at work, and they said, well, let's go to the Orthodox Church on next Sunday. I said, fine. I wanted to go to St. Nicholas because it was closer to my house. He wanted to go to St. Spiridon, and he won. And I kept going ever since then.
What was your first impression?
That the service was really, really long, and that they need new carpets.
Okay, here's what I want you to say. My first impression was?
My first impression was the services seemed long, and they needed new carpets.
But what kept you coming back?
Um,
And if you could put my questions in your answer, if I say
Yeah.
what kept coming back, you'd say, what kept me coming back was?
I wasn't sure at first what kept me coming back, but when I think back on it, it was just a spiritual feeling. I don't know how else to put that into words, because at first it just seemed all way overwhelming to me. But the more I came, the more it felt at home. But it was a spiritual feeling in the building.
If you were to describe the community here to someone who'd never been here, what would you say?
Well, it's a really diverse group of people, actually. It's, the difference between converts and non-converts. It's the difference between Russian-born and American-born, even if they're Russian descent. There's a huge difference in those people. But as a group, they seem to be very cohesive, and they seem to flow together pretty well. But there's great differences in lifestyle and how they were raised and everything. It still feels to be like a family and cohesive.
Yeah, I would agree. Tell me just a little bit about your position as warden. And if you could just start by saying, I'm the warden of the church, and...
Well, I'll start by why I'm the warden of the church. After I had been chrismated not very long, Father came to me and asked me if I would like to have my faith tested. And I said, I don't know what he was suggesting, and he wanted to ask me if I'd be the warden.
And what do you do as the warden?
Sell candles, I talk to people when they come in, get the church ready to start, light all the candles, light all the stuff, help the deacon with stuff back there if he needs anything. Basically, you look after the church.
Now, I've asked everyone this question, but I think this especially applies to you. Why do you keep coming back to St. Spiridon? And not only coming back, but you show up, sometimes an hour and a half early or an hour early, time after time, service after service. What is it that keeps you coming back and investing so much of yourself in this community?
Well, I think part of it for me, seriously, why I attend the way I do, I think it's somewhat having a notion that you give money, but you also have to tithe your time and your effort, and all those things have to be together. And you can give money or you can give time, but you really need to do both as much as possible. And I think that's it. That's what I can give back to the church.
But why would you? What is inspiring you to give? What in this church is pulling you to give? Who are you giving it to?
Because when you have those moments of when you're really spiritually touched, you want to make sure that always happens. So the feeling you have in the church, the closeness, the spiritual, when you're touched spiritually, and just the closeness of the church, you want to make sure that this church is always here. And so you do everything in your power to keep this church flowing and running, because it gives you so much.
That's it right there. That's the money statement right there. That's awesome. you have a really unique perspective because you get to see so many different people coming and going. You see all the behind the scenes politics. You see you see a lot of different stuff. You see a lot of frustrations and so on and so forth. What has been helpful in the midst of dealing with people's frustrations and the politics? Is there anything that helps you to rise above that or to connect to something that's above all the petty frustration?
I think you have to kind of work on that, because your tendency is when you hear a lot of negative things, or you hear some problems that are happening in the church or in the diocese or whatever, I think your first tendency is to be kind of pessimistic and, that's just, but the reality is being Orthodox and being part of the church body of Christ is never wrong. It's never at odds with anything, and things that will come back into line. If things are out to kilter at some point, they'll come back into line because it's the body of Christ, and that's always correct. So,
awesome, good answer. I know this is painful, so I'm not going to keep you under this light much longer. But that horn. I'd actually like you to, last question. Tell me a bit about your experience with Father Medine. If you were to describe Father Medine to somebody, what would you say about him as the shepherd of our community?
He can. Let's see. How do I put this? His ability to cut to the chase when he's talking to you is phenomenal. I mean, you can be telling him all this stuff that's wrong, all this, how you're feeling, and he'll just hit it right on the where he needs to hit it. Not a big elaborate thing, but he'll just say, well, you need to, and he hits it.